Bienvenidos a Roastbrief TV, una producción de la Universidad de la Comunicación y Roastbrief. Programa especializado que nos acerca a las grandes personalidades del medio, publicidad, comunicación y mercadotecnia. Conduce Fernando Herrera. Comenzamos.
Hi, my name is Lilia Gonzalez and we are here with Roastbrief TV. So we are gonna interview Jeffrey Sharlach, the founder and chairman of Jeffrey Group. Very nice to meet you. Thank you for coming here with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks to you. Okay, we will have like 10 questions for you.
Okay,
So
great.
our first one is a brief history of Jeffrey Group, how it started and how it came here to Mexico, why you decided that.
Well, Jeffrey Group started in 1993, and I started out of my living room in Miami. And I had spent many years, about 15, 16 years, working at a lot of large international agencies. And the last agency I was at, I was in charge of our global international expansion. And I would go and I would travel all over the world and talk to different people and agencies and clients. And in 1991, they asked me to travel to Latin America. And that was my first trip ever to Latin America, other than going to Tijuana with my parents from San Diego one time. And I was working for Saatchi & Saatchi, and I put together a whole plan on how I thought the company could best expand its public relations offerings in Latin America. And I submitted it to the headquarters in New York where I was living. And at the time, I talked about how there was so much excitement about the regional approach to Latin America and how I thought it would be a good idea to open an office in Miami. And they weren't interested. They didn't understand why you would ever do anything in Miami for Latin America, because I wasn't even part of Latin America. But I had talked to all the clients, and I knew there was a lot of interest in Latin America as a region. And so I left my agency job in 1993, and I moved to Miami. And I started Jeffrey Group out of my apartment. And my idea was I was going to be a consultant to all these big corporations that were setting up Latin American regional headquarters in Miami. And I would advise them on how to do public relations in Latin America in the morning, and then in the afternoon I'd go to the beach. But the company grew very, very rapidly, and I had to give up my time at the beach. And we had a lot of major clients. At that time, most of our clients were regional. They hire us in Miami, and they would have us work in the region. And even in those days, Mexico, this is the early 1990s, Mexico was one of the most important countries in the region to many clients, as well as Brazil. And at the time, Argentina was the big success story of Latin America. So in 1996, we opened the first of our own offices in Buenos Aires, and a year later, in 1997, we opened in Mexico City, and 1998, we opened in Sao Paulo. So today we have 7 offices, 3 in Brazil, the office here in Mexico City, which is one of our largest, and we've actually been 20 years this year in Mexico, Jeffrey Group.
That's a good history. You grow very fast. And what is the key to excel in the mature and highly competitive market service by the communications and public relations agencies?
Well, I think it seems like we grew fast, but it's actually, this is our 24th year of Jeffrey Group. So I think it's taken a long time, and we've never tried to be the biggest agency. We've, I think, grown very slowly and very deliberately. We've been very selective about the clients who work with us, and I know the clients that work with us have been very selective. And we've also kept our focus on multinational companies and brands. And I think this is part of our philosophy, is that we don't want to be all things to all people. We want to focus on this one particular niche. So we focus on these large global companies and brands, but we do it in a very, very specialized, personalized way. And this was my idea when I started Jeffrey Group, was that I had come from big agencies. So I knew the people at big agencies were very smart. I knew they had a lot of expertise. I knew they had a lot of experience. but I wanted to deliver it in a way that was more focused on client service and more personalized attention. And I think the big agencies, especially the ones that are part of these big, large public holding companies, it's very hard to do that. And the idea with Jeffrey Group was to take that same kind of talent, the same kind of experienced expertise that you find at the big agencies, but provide it in a much smaller, private, independent agency atmosphere. And I think the clients have responded very well to that. We call it the Jeffrey Group way. And it's all of our special ways that we do things with our focus on client service and attention to detail and being proactive and working without boundaries, all the things that we instill in our staff all over the region. So I think, the people is what has made us competitive. And at one time, it was mostly about Jeffrey. These days, it's much more about the group because we have close to 150 employees in all of our different offices. And over the years, we've had hundreds and hundreds of employees that have been part of Jeffrey Group's history and our growth and our success. And I think these days, all of those people and the combination of the expertise has really helped us. But the dedication to client service, that's one thing that has never changed, I think, since day one.
Perfect. So what is Jeffrey Group doing to innovate and adapt to the times?
Well, our business has changed a lot. And part of that is because of the way the world has changed. I actually do a presentation that I just did recently at a conference in Brazil, where I talked about how much you think the world has really changed a lot, but if you go back to when I was born in the 1950s, really not that much has changed. We had automobiles, we had air conditioning, we had jets that went at the same speed that they go at now. We had automobiles. So people say, oh my God, the world has changed so much. And really, the world has not changed. What has changed dramatically is communication. We have only had smartphones for 10 years. Steve Jobs introduced the first iPhone in 2007. So it's hard, now none of us can imagine living without it, but until 10 years ago, we all lived without it. So people say the world has changed a lot, but really what's changed is communication. Mm-hmm. And that's why our business has had to innovate and transform along with that. Now, if you look at our business, the business of communications and public relations, that grew with the mass media. And there used to be that the only way that a company could communicate its message to millions of people was through the media. And that's all changed with the internet, because now companies can speak directly to consumers or prospective consumers or the entire universe. Yeah. So this has been a big, big change, because originally our whole focus was on reaching out to the media and how we would communicate our message through the media, how we'd get the media to communicate our clients' messages and achieve our clients' objectives. Now, with the transformation in digital and the internet, now it's much more, how can we attract, there's this huge competition for people's time and attention. The media is competing for that, but so is every website is competing for that attention. So is all the branded content creating for that attention. So our business has evolved now as we try to break through all of that clutter and deliver the client's messages directly, or make the material available to the public.
Yeah, that's very true. And let's talk about the vision on the sector. What is your growth forecast for the coming years?
Well, I think communications is going to become more and more important to the success of the business enterprise. Today you see that, for example, if you look at the Fortune 500, more than half of the Fortune 500, the top communications executive, reports directly to the CEO. So I think this is a signal of how important communications is to the business. Because you can have a company that really makes excellent products, but if the communication is bad, or the reputation is bad, or the imitation is bad, they're not going to be successful. Yeah. On the other hand, you could have a company where maybe the products weren't that good, but where the buzz and the excitement and the interest was so high that the company could be successful, at least for some time, until everybody realized the products weren't so good. So this is a big, big change, I think, in the way that companies reach out and how the communications is so vital to that. And we see over and over again now how brands and companies need to monitor their reputation 24/7 and be ready to react in a minute, in a second. A minute is too long, to any threats to the reputation or to the image.
And what are the trends for the next few years?
Well, I think you're going to see more and more a focus on companies looking to how to communicate with their customers and their prospective customers. And this is a big, big challenge. This is a challenge not only for the public relations firms, but for the advertising agencies and for the companies that are trying to figure out this new landscape. Now that everyone is carrying around an information device in their hand, and they're in front of a screen basically from the time they get up in the morning until the time they go to sleep at night, and then when they wake up in the middle of the night, they're still looking at the screen, is how you get that, how you compete in that environment for attention. So I think what we're looking at is things like branded content, things that earn the customer's attention. Because it's not going to be enough to just stand there and shout anymore, because there's too many people shouting. So everybody's standing there shouting, and the customer and the consumers have a choice of what they're going to pay attention to. So I think this is where companies like ours that focus on the strategic communications, where we can provide an educational message, where we can provide information, that's where I think, where we're providing some useful data to the company, to the consumers, I think that's what's going to attract them.
That is very true. Thank you for your time, Jeffrey. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes.
And thank you for you.
Well, thank you. The pleasure was mine.